The lights burst across the massive stage as the audience murmured with soft curiosity, unaware of what they were about to witness. For the first 15 seconds everything felt like an ordinary audition, but the moment the thin, nervous boy stepped into the center, something shifted. The judges leaned forward, the crowd slowly quieted, no one expected what came next. And when the final note poured out of his trembling lips, the entire theater froze, tears streaming down faces everywhere. The golden buzzer exploded like a miracle from heaven, and the judges stood in disbelief, unable to speak. His story began long before that night, long before the cameras turned on and the world watched him walk into the spotlight. He grew up in a tiny, forgotten neighborhood where the roads were cracked, the electricity flickered, and the days felt longer than they should. His mother worked 2 jobs and still returned home exhausted, carrying cheap groceries and forcing smiles so her son never felt the weight of poverty pressing down on their small house. The boy's father had disappeared when he was too young to remember, leaving only faint stories of a man who once played music while holding him gently in his arms. Life became a constant balance between surviving and dreams always lost the fight. The boy, whose name echoed softly with innocence, found comfort in the faint world of melodies. A broken radio his mother had salvaged from a trash pile became his door to hope. It barely worked, the antenna was bent, the sound buzzed with static, and sometimes it shut off without warning. But when it played, even for 1 minute, he felt like the universe was speaking directly to him. He listened to singers telling stories of pain, courage, heartbreak, and triumph. Through those songs, he learned something powerful. Even the weakest voices can echo louder than thunder when they come from the heart. Every night, while the neighborhood slept, he stood near the window and practiced singing in whispers so he wouldn't wake his mother. Sometimes he sang into his pillow to hide the sound. Sometimes he hummed quietly while washing dishes or walking to school. The other children teased him for it, laughing at his old shoes, his worn-out backpack, and the cracks in his voice. But deep inside, he held on to one impossible dream. One day he would sing on a stage big enough to change his mother's life forever. One evening, while browsing through the public library's old computer, he saw an advertisement for auditions in the America's Got Talent show. He didn't have money for travel, clothes, or even a proper microphone to practice with, but something in him refused to ignore the chance. He printed the location details using the last few coins he had saved and kept the paper hidden in his pocket for days, terrified his mother would say no. Finally, he built up the courage to show her the flyer. She stared at it with exhaustion in her eyes, understanding both the dream and the heartbreak trapped inside it. She knew the cost, the distance, the risk of disappointment. But she also knew her son had lived his whole life without a single real opportunity. She took his hand gently and whispered that if he truly wanted to try, she would find a way. For the next week she worked extra hours, skipping meals to save enough money for the bus trip. Their neighbor gave the boy a second-hand shirt that at least looked presentable. Another neighbor ironed it for him. The community that had always pitied the small family suddenly united behind the boy's dream, because they knew how much his mother had suffered and how much he had secretly given up. When the morning of the audition arrived, she kissed his forehead, placed a tiny packed meal in his hands, and told him to sing with his soul, not his voice. The audition venue felt enormous. People laughed, rehearsed loudly, and flaunted confidence he couldn't imagine having. He kept to himself, sitting on a chair hugging the strap of his bag, his legs trembling. The moment his number was called, his stomach turned. He walked toward the stage entrance slowly, forcing himself not to cry from anxiety. The staff encouraged him with warm smiles, unaware of how much courage it took for him to take each step. Then everything faded into silence when he stepped onto the stage. The theater lights made him squint, and the massive audience became a sea of blurry faces. The judges looked down at him with curiosity, not judgment. Simon asked him softly where he came from. His voice shook when he answered. Simon asked what he would be singing. The boy hesitated for a moment, then whispered the name of a song that meant everything to him. A song his father used to hum. A song his mother secretly cried to at night. A song that carried the weight of their entire life. The music started, but the boy didn't. His hands trembled so badly he almost lost balance. Simon noticed and mouthed the words, "Take your time." The gentle reminder gave the boy enough strength to inhale deeply. His first note cracked, barely audible, and a few people in the crowd exchanged confused glances. But then the second note escaped, soft yet pure, and the theater shifted. His voice was fragile, trembling, breaking at the edges, but filled with something no professional singer could replicate. Emotion. Real, raw, unfiltered emotion. He sang about holding on even when you're falling apart. He sang about love that survives struggle. He sang about promises made under the darkest nights. His voice carried stories of empty plates, lonely birthdays, long nights his mother cried alone, mornings he walked to school with holes in his shoes, afternoons he sat on broken steps imagining a better world. The crowd leaned in. The judges froze in disbelief. Every lyric tore through the silence like a confession too painful to hide. His voice quivered, but every quiver carried truth. And then came the high note, the note he had always feared. The night before the audition he had stayed awake practicing it until his throat hurt. Now he closed his eyes and reached deep inside himself, deeper than he ever had before. The note emerged trembling at first, then rising higher, clearer, breaking the air with aching beauty. People gasped. Some covered their mouths. Others began to cry quietly. He didn't see their tears. He didn't see anything, not the lights, not the camera, not the thousands of faces staring at him. In his mind he saw only his mother, tired, strong, hungry but smiling, sitting on the edge of her bed praying that her son would not come home disappointed. That vision fueled the last chorus, and he delivered it with every ounce of strength his small body carried. When the music stopped, the theater remained silent for several seconds. No one clapped, no one breathed. It was as though the entire world was stunned into stillness. Then the first tear fell down the face of one of the judges. Then another. Then another. The audience broke into applause so thunderous it shook the stage. People stood up, cheeks wet, waving their arms and cheering as if witnessing a miracle. The boy stood frozen. He didn't know whether to smile or cry. His chest rose and fell rapidly as he tried to understand what was happening. Simon wiped his eyes, completely unable to hide the emotion. He leaned forward, his voice trembling, and told the boy that he had just performed one of the most emotional auditions in the show's history. The other judges echoed the same shock, their voices filled with overwhelming compassion. They told him his voice carried something more powerful than perfection. It carried truth. Then one judge looked toward the golden buzzer. The boy blinked, confused. The judge raised a hand slowly, as if asking the universe for permission. The entire crowd erupted into screams the moment they realized what was about to happen. The judge pressed the button with tears falling freely, and the theater exploded into gold. Golden confetti poured from the ceiling like falling stars. The boy gasped, stepping back, unable to believe what he was seeing. Gold surrounded him, sticking to his hair, his shirt, his tiny trembling hands. The music roared triumphantly as he covered his face and cried, overwhelmed, shaking with disbelief. Simon stood up and clapped slowly, emotionally, watching the boy with genuine admiration. The boy felt arms wrap around him as the host rushed onto the stage and gave him a warm hug, guiding him to the front where he could face the shower of gold. The entire place vibrated with emotion, thousands of people cheering a child who came from nowhere but whose heart had just conquered the world. Backstage, his mother collapsed into tears when she saw the golden confetti stuck to his clothes. She hugged him tightly, sobbing into his shoulder, and he held her just as tightly. The two of them stood there for several minutes, crying together, neither able to speak. He handed her a single piece of gold confetti and whispered that it was for her because she earned it more than he did. The show producers filmed their embrace, knowing the moment would touch millions. Interviewers asked him how he felt, and he could barely speak. He said he had never imagined the world would listen to him. He said he sang for his mother because she had given up everything for him. And he said he wanted to use this chance not just to sing, but to change their life forever. In the days that followed the audition, the video went viral. People shared it around the world, calling him the boy with the golden heart. Thousands of comments appeared, filled with love and encouragement. Strangers donated money to help him and his mother. Others sent messages saying his story gave them hope during their darkest days. His voice had reached far more people than he ever dreamed possible. The producers flew him back for interviews, rehearsals, and preparation for the live shows. For the first time in his life, he stayed in a real hotel, slept on a soft bed, and ate meals he had only seen on television. But he didn't forget where he came from. He kept every message from fans, especially the ones who said his courage inspired them. When he returned to the stage for the semifinals, the audience welcomed him like a returning hero. They cheered before he even sang a word. He wasn't the same scared boy from the audition anymore. He had grown, gained confidence, and learned to believe in his own voice. But the emotion was still there, stronger than ever. His performance in the semifinals became another unforgettable moment. He dedicated his song to single mothers around the world. His mother watched from the side of the stage, crying uncontrollably, her hands pressed to her face. The judges gave him a standing ovation again, praising his ability to turn pain into art. When the finals arrived, he sang with fire in his heart, delivering a performance that felt like a message to every child who had ever been told their dreams were impossible. He didn't win first place in the competition, but he won something far greater, the world's love, respect, and admiration. After the show ended, agencies reached out to him. Organizations offered scholarships. One sponsor offered his mother a job. A well-known music label expressed interest in helping him create original songs based on his life experiences. His story became a symbol of hope globally. Months later, he stood in a large studio recording his first single. He looked through the window at his mother, who sat watching proudly, tears forming again. He smiled and said he couldn't have done any of this without her. The producer told him to take as many takes as he needed, but once again, just like during his audition, he sang from his soul and needed only one. The song released worldwide, it climbed charts rapidly, and millions listened to it daily, replaying the raw emotion of a boy who once had nothing. He performed on morning shows, award programs, charity concerts, and special events dedicated to helping children in poverty. He became a global symbol of resilience and courage. But no matter how famous he became, he never forgot the moment everything changed. The stage, the trembling voice, the cracked first note, the unexpected tears of the judges, the explosion of golden confetti raining down like destiny itself unfolding in front of him. Years later, when he stood on the same show as a guest star, he looked at a new generation of dreamers standing nervously behind the curtains. He approached a young girl who was crying from fear and told her the same words Simon had once silently told him. "Take your time." The girl smiled weakly, wiped her tears, and walked onto the stage. And as he watched her perform, he realized something beautiful. Dreams don't belong to the strongest or the richest. Dreams belong to those who dare to try even when the world expects them to fail. The golden buzzer wasn't just a moment. It was the beginning of everything. The night a poor boy with a trembling voice made the world cry. The night his story spread like wildfire, changing lives far beyond his own. The night he proved that even the smallest voice can echo through eternity when it carries the weight of truth. And that is how a boy who once sang into a broken radio became a symbol of hope for millions, reminding the world that talent can come from anywhere, but greatness comes from the heart.